to know that God has your back, and to know that you will never lack, to know that the maker of the birds, trees, and seas loves you unconditionally. Overwhelmed with joy is what you feel when you realize this relationship is real. All the bad habits being depleted, and all the negative history being deleted. As for me, I'm captain of my ship no more. Driver's seat is the Lord's, for he would lead me to shore. But when I'm in my deep, darkest obstacles is where he makes his pedestals. For he is made strong when I am made weak. And knowing this, things would never seem too bleak. And to know the fact that the King of the universe humbled himself to come in a manger of all places, of all forms, of all comeliness. He didn't come saying, give me the kingdoms, give me all the blessings in this world, which he deserves. He's God. Yet he comes and we do not receive him. We don't even allow the King of the universe in an inn, because that's where our hearts are. Human nature. It's sad. It's very sad to see so many people so deprived, and they're deprived because they choose to be deprived of this peace, of this beautiful peace. And with this world, all the junk that you go through, and a lot of it is just self-imposed limitations. It's self doing things that harm self. Because where does love for self come from? There's no 5-step program for love for self. Where does love for our fellow man come from? There's no 5-step program for that either. Why was it so hard for people back 2,000 years ago to implement the golden rule? Because their hearts are not golden or submitted to any rules. And we see today the same thing in the church, out of the church, all congregations, all houses of worship. Whichever house of worship you go to, it's all the same. There's so much of the same issues. And we come together in the holiday season of Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever you're celebrating, and you see all this gift giving, and it's so beautiful to think of all of this stuff that's going on, and yet then we see so many in one holiday they can give, but with their words and actions they're giving a gift, and then next thing you know they're cursing people out, destroying the mindset of other people, bullying other people. But on this one day, for some weird reason, they have the giving spirit, because it shows that this peace cannot be duplicatable by human means and human means only, because it can be very inconsistent, because us as human beings tend to be inconsistent in something. We can do so much things day after day after day after day, but we're missing something. No one ever gets everything right that they want every day. And it's because it's a lack of peace. It's just being a natural human being, where we strive for greatness yet we don't hit it. If we're striving for greatness, a lot of people are striving for complacency. Kingdom couch, that's who they serve. They just stay in their couch. They don't do anything more with their lives. They don't pursue anything. They don't try to say one nice word to somebody. They just live in a bubble. But why is that bubble so unpoppable? It's because in that bubble they have a false reality of peace. Because in that bubble there's no one popping them. There's no greater responsibility than that. But the people who are peaceful have the greatest responsibility. Because if you look at Yeshua, you see a man who, as people were mocking him, he delivered messages on love, on sound mind, on integrity, without being condemning. He saw a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. To describe it more, when you're caught in the act of adultery back then, that means that you're caught in bed with another man that's not your husband. The disgustingness of that sin is so tremendous. But just think of how deep this message is. The fact that he told everyone who wanted to stone her, and her actions deserved stoning. Her action, like all sin, deserves condemnation, just as a whole, because sin, the wages of sin bring forth death, as it says in the book of Romans, in the scriptures. But now, this woman is in front of Yeshua, Almighty God, in her face, and he looks at all her accusers, and she's doomed. She's absolutely 100% doomed. There is no reset button. This isn't a video game. This is real. And she's stuck facing instant death. She just had sex with someone else. There's no way that after that action, without her even coming to the Lord and repenting, that she would make it to heaven. She's screwed right now. She's absolutely screwed. Life stinks for her. Everything's going wrong. Jesus, or Yeshua, turns around, looks at everyone and says, "He who is without sin, cast the first stone." And then he goes down to where she is. Again, Yeshua, in a lowly position, when he deserves to be treated much higher, goes down to the ground with her and says, "Where are your accusers? Do they condemn you?" And I can only imagine how broken she was. And she said, "No." And he looked at her and said, "Neither do I condemn you."
Hallelujah.
The Prince of Peace, the mighty counselor, is a God who isn't about condemnation. But when you give your steering wheel on your sinking ship to the Lord, that awakens the door, opens the door of your heart to what we as believers know as perfect peace. Amen.